Sure.
No.
Greetings from National Academy of Medical Sciences, India. Focusing on NAMS Vision 2030, NAMS is pleased to share some of the important activities like NAMS National, International Fellowship and Membership, Member After Day and AIIMS-NAMS, NAMS Task Forces, AIIMS-NAMS Navigate Medico CME activities, publication of annals, newsletter, networking with professionals, public orations, Young Scientist Fellowship, Scientist Exchange Program, scientific visit of Emeritus Professor and many more activities. All application forms for fellowship, membership, associate fellowship, and member after day and be line and objective criteria from the year 2022. AIIMS has also started a new online AIIMS-NAMS Navigate CME and Navigate Medico CME program to assist in the development of competencies among PG students and share multimedia learning resource materials as e-library. NAMS has also started 21 task forces to address medical issues of national importance. Under publication activities, NAMS has its own annal as Annal of the National Academy of Medical Sciences. In addition, NAMS also publishes its quarterly NAMS newsletter. For more details of NAMS activities, please visit our NAMS website www.nams-india.in or scan QR codes with the camera app.
Greetings from National Academy of Medical Sciences, India. NAMS has been recognized by the Government of India as a nodal agency for promoting the continuing medical education for medical and biomedical professionals. National Academy of Medical Sciences encourages and sponsors nationwide CME programs, symposia and workshops in medical and biomedical professionals. NAMS is pleased to announce the launching of a joint AIIMS-NAMS Navigate CME program from 1st September 2023 for postgraduate students in all the AIIMS and other eminent institutes of national importance from Andhra Pradesh, Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Goa, Gujarat, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, Jharkhand, Karnataka, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Odisha, Punjab, Rajasthan, Sikkim, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Tripura, Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand of the country. The program is being conducted online on the first Friday of every month from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. The AIIMS-NAMS CME focuses on the topics which are of common interest for the postgraduates across all specialties. The aim of the National Virtual Postgraduate Medical CME is to help them to be more proficient in their profession. Each session will cover 2 topics. Each topic will be of 1 hour duration, which includes 45 minutes for presentation by speaker, 15 minutes for questions and answers. Support.
Good afternoon, one and all. I welcome you all to today's joint AIIMS-NAMS Navigate CME program for postgraduates. I would now like to request Professor Umesh Kapil sir, the Secretary of the National Academy of Medical Sciences, to deliver the welcome address.
Good afternoon to all the participants, respected Professor Amitabh and Dr. Sanjay Rai, all our friends.
His voice is not audible.
It's a great privilege to welcome all of you on behalf of National Academy of Medical Sciences. This initiative, which has been undertaken with help of AIIMS New Delhi by National Academy of Medical Sciences.
The journey of this project began on February 18, 2018.
For all the postgraduates studying in all the medical colleges. The aim is to reach the most peripheral doctors who are in the different parts of the country. The aim is to ensure that their knowledge gets updated. They may be better prepared for their exams. So what we have done is in the past, we have about 15 state-of-art presentations. We have tried to get the best of the best medical doctors in the field. And they have delivered the state-of-art presentation. What we normally do is put all the PowerPoint on the NAMS virtual library at the NAMS website, along with the, so that if they want to go through these videos again and again, be able to go through it and they can get that. With these remarks, I again welcome all of you and most thankful to Dr. Sanjay Rai and Dr. Amitabh sir. And in fact, I would say that these are the 2 most academically active persons in the field of COVID vaccination. Not, we'll have both of them together and get all the postgraduates updated about COVID vaccine and its future strategy. Thank you very much. Over to you, please.
Thank you, sir. Now I'd like to request our IT team to display the message from the President of the National Academy of Medical Sciences, Professor Sivkumar Sareen sir. Sivkumar Sareen sir is a senior professor of hepatology and director of the Institute of Liver and Biliary. He's also the director of the WHO Collaborative Center on Chronic Liver Diseases and Viral Hepatitis at ILBS, and the main motivator for this Navigate CME program.
On behalf of the National Academy of Medical Sciences, it gives me immense pleasure to invite you to this National Medical Postgraduate Virtual CME program to navigate our postgraduates to become better clinicians, better physicians, surgeons, and investigators, and also to be able to get into higher courses with ease. National Academy of Medical Sciences is your own academy. It is an umbrella organization which involves experts from all fields of medicine and paramedical departments. Also, it includes researchers and eminent scientists from overseas. National Academy helps to find the best talents, to recognize them, and also to request them to teach students and colleagues across. This CME program is very special because the Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock, is with All India Institute of Medical Sciences. As you know fully well, there are about 16 AIIMS in India, and these institutions of higher learning have joined hands with National Academy of Medical Sciences. The faculty there or the experts visiting these institutes are going to give their best pieces of knowledge to students and faculty across. I feel the knowledge given through these AIIMS and NAMS CME is of immense use to all our students. The National Academy will continue to strive and improve the clinical and knowledge base of our youngsters. I am very thankful to the director, AIIMS, Dr. Srinivas, who has consented to be part of this program, and also to all other directors of AIIMS who have given their time. I encourage you to invite students, motivate them to learn, and be with us every first Friday of the month from 3 to 5 p.m. With this, I welcome today's speaker. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Now I'd like to request our IT team to display the message from the esteemed director of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Dr. M. Srinivas, sir. We are grateful to sir for extending his kind support to this Navigate CME program.
Namaskar. At the outset, I congratulate the team behind the AIIMS-Navigate CME program. Providing quality of education to our postgraduate students is one of the prime responsibilities of AIIMS. I know that our able faculty is leaving no stone unturned in achieving this mission. However, there always remains a scope for improvement. Through this unique initiative, there is an opportunity for our postgraduate students to learn from the experts in their field. This learning will go beyond the boundaries of department where our postgraduate students are working and will also bring in more flavor in their knowledge and at the same time ensure dissemination of uniform, high quality content all across the nation. Postgraduate students also form our primary workforce for providing patient care. This indeed is an important component of their training. We are aware that our postgraduate students devote a large component of their time for the patient care services, and thus they have less time for self-study by the end of the day. The timing of this activity is therefore very carefully chosen. The sessions will be held late in the afternoon so that the beneficiaries do not have to make any extra effort for attending them. This by itself exudes the philosophy of true teacher, a mentor that will handhold the children through the process of their active learning. As a session which by its very design is a non-synchronous platform, it may seem that the delivery of the content will be one-sided, but enough measures have been planned and they are in place to make the activity as interactive as possible. The topic of the session will be shared with the students well in advance. This will allow them enough time to explore the subject and be better prepared to absorb the content. This design, therefore, also matches the concept and principles of adult learning. The program not only will help our postgraduate students in being better prepared for their examinations, but also will equip them with sufficient knowledge, understanding, and approach to be a better professional in their field. I wish this program all success. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor and a privilege for me to introduce the chairperson for today's session, Professor Sanjay Kumar Rai, sir, who is the professor in the Center for Community Medicine at AIIMS, New Delhi. Sir's chief areas of interest include COVID-19, immunization, health system, and communicable diseases, including tuberculosis and influenza. Sir had been the president of the Indian Public Health Association, and he had founded a joint COVID-19 task force with eminent public health experts to advise the government of India regarding the containment of COVID-19 in India. Sir has also played a very important role in development of vaccine against COVID-19 in India. His contribution as a principal investigating vaccine safety in both phase 1 and phase 2 and effectiveness trial, that is phase 3, at AIIMS New Delhi, has helped timely release of Covaxin vaccine nationally as well as globally. Sir has, to his credit, over 175 publications and more than 40 research projects. Sir has many awards and honors to his name, including Dr. J.E. Park Memorial Oration of Indian Public Health Association, and has also been conferred Fellowship of Indian Public Health Association. He is member of many technical or expert groups constituted by Government of India, Indian Council of Medical Research, and International Clinical Epidemiology Network. Sir is a faculty member for CME program and African E-Network Project of India, a project started by the Honorable President of India in 2009, is broadcast to nearly 35 African countries. Sir has been involved in research on human influenza disease burden in India, and also one of the largest influenza vaccine effectiveness trial studies in collaboration with Center for Diseases Control, Atlanta, and University of Alabama, USA. We are grateful to Sir for having taken out his time from his busy schedule and having coming here. I would now request Professor Sanjay Rai sir to provide his opening remarks and introduce the speaker for today's session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ravi. Namaskar, all the dads, Professor Umesh Kapil, and Dr. Suma, and Dr. Preeti, those who are attending virtually, the participants, President of AIIMS, Dr. Salim, Dr. AIIMS, New Delhi, Dr. First of all, I would like to thank Umesh for giving me this opportunity especially to Dr. Umesh Kapil. And really, it's my privilege to introduce today's speaker. I feel honored to introduce Dr. Amitabh Banerjee. Dr. Amitabh Banerjee is a professor of community medicine, and see, I admire his capability, his deep understanding of the this epidemiology. And most of you must have seen him during COVID time, either on the TV or through. He educated both layperson and also through various articles in journal and newspaper. Media. Several times I had discussion with Dr. Amitabh Banerjee. He was part of all those 5 IPHA-IPSM joint statements, and for all the pieces, I request you to kindly go through them. When the first statement was April 2020, during the lockdown time, the second we published during May 2020, just 1.5 months after the first publication. So we have already published 5 statements. I can say so-called experts at times it's a controversial issue, unnecessarily in IPHA, IPSM, people without any understanding their statements. When in May 2020, when we said that sooner or later majority of us will get infection, irrespective of
Excuse
this,
me, that mic is not working.
COVID, lockdown or no lockdown, we'll get this infection, and then we say goodbye to this infection, that is SARS-CoV-2 infection or COVID-19 disease. That time, we think even many other experts, not from the fraternity, but many other experts, the front that no, it's not going to happen. Through lockdown, we are going to eliminate. There was a presentation in front of press media that by 16th of May 2020, there will be 0 cases. And we all know the situations. Even during lockdown, when the lockdown was implemented on the 25th of March 2020, 24th of March, Pradhan Mantri had addressed to the he 2020. That time, the total number of cases were less than 600, and the per day reporting cases were around 200. Even with all this lockdown, we reached to 1 lakh cases per day during September 2020. And then there was a gradual decline from 1 lakh per day to less than 10,000 cases per day in February 2020. And then again, we witnessed one severe second wave, Delta wave, that was a devastating wave during April, May 2021. Although we launched this vaccination program on 16th of January 2021, but we faced this problem, and then the total number of cases went up to 4 to 5, somewhere between 4 to 5 lakh per day, and these were the reported numbers. The actual number could be several times higher than this, and we reported, this country reported almost 5,000 deaths per day during 2021. And then again there was a decline, so up and down, up and down. There were another wave also. About Dr. Amitabh Banerjee sir, he is a professor, Department of Community Medicine, D.Y. Patil Medical College Hospital Research Center. He has been awarded gold medal for his paper Impact of Information Technology during army career. Also awarded for research on tribal malaria and hepatitis C during armed force career. Is research and publication. He is a research and publication advisor, Surin University, Thailand. That time he was there in Thailand, 2015-16. He is author of the COVID-19 pandemic, a third eye book. I will request all the postgraduate kindly go through this book. More than 200 paper in his credit. So, his credit it's endless. In 5 or 10 minutes time, I can't narrate his credit. So, really, I request Dr. Amitabh Banerjee to now stage in your hand and kindly in his presentation, sir. Dr. Amitabh Banerjee, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I feel very privileged. I feel very honored to have been given
पुनः डॉक्टर अमिताभ बनर्जी ग्रुप में थे ना.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure, honor, and privilege to come on this platform of National Academy of Medical Sciences and AIIMS, New Delhi. And I'm grateful to Dr. Sarin, Dr. Srinivasan, Dr. Umesh Kapil, and for wonderful introduction by Dr. Sanjay Rai. I must confess I did not hear much of it because there was some sound problem, but I hope he has spoken good about it.
University.
So, I will be talking. The topic today is COVID vaccines, future strategies. So before that, because like most of you may be clinicians, most of the residents may be pursuing clinical specialties. So similarly, when a patient comes, you take the past history, you take the way the patient has responded to earlier intervention, then you plan the future strategies from that patient. You do not tell the patient to take this drug or to take this intervention without asking him about the past history. So similarly, I would be giving an overview of the pandemic as it unfolded, and the more we look back in the pandemic, the better we can project what should be the strategies for the future. So this would be the year. I will be giving the evolution of the pandemic. Secondly, I will be also, as I said, you should ask the patient how he reacted to a particular drug in the past before considering the same drug in the future. So I will be evaluating the impact of the vaccine on a mass scale, because this was the first time in history we had such a mass scale and such an extensive vaccination and at such a short time. So it is important to evaluate, and you must have also read some papers in Lancet and all that the vaccines had prevented 20 million deaths. If you read the paper deeply, these are from the mathematical models, and as we know, mathematical models have got their own limitations. Mathematical models have a shelf life of only 15 days. Beyond that, it cannot predict. Besides that, one good thing in this pandemic was that we had real-time data. Every 24 hours, country-wise, we had data of deaths, we have data of number of cases. So our department, with the help of our residents and faculty, had been compiling this data for 2 to 3 years, and we observed some very particular patterns, country-wise patterns, area-wise patterns, which we will be displaying. And we had some paradoxical outcomes which we never expected after the vaccine rollout. That also we will be projecting some graphs which are compiled from the data in the public domain. All of you, I would encourage all the young people to can replicate this. Whatever we will be showing today can be replicated with the data available in the public domain. It is not rocket science. It is not as complex as mathematical models. It's as simple as that. And then we will briefly review the types of vaccines, new technology which are used for the first time. And then there are some recent concerns. Recently, you must have read a paper or cohort of more than around 99 million people, vaccinated people were followed. So there were some concerning reports of adverse events. So keeping that in mind, we will also have to see for future, particularly for our country, we do not have a very good AEFI, adverse events following immunization system. So we have to get that in place before we can think of future mass vaccination at a scale which we carried out. Because if you are rolling out a mass vaccination so rapidly, you should have a proper monitoring system. It is just like running a super fast train on old tracks. There are likely to be derailment. So keeping all this, I will be presenting data, and then I will be asking the questions. I will not be answering the questions. I will be asking the questions. What should be the strategy? We will also see how, as you know, epidemiology, who were affected, which age group were affected, which were the risk groups, which were the low risk groups. Accordingly, we all know all vaccination or interventions should be calibrated according to that. So we will be presenting that data also, so that which can help us decide how to plan future strategies. And then other questions which comes up, who should be vaccinated, whether we go for mass vaccination or risk group vaccination, whether we should have vaccine mandates or we should leave it voluntary. So these are some of the questions. So now I will be giving a short presentation. So I can start the presentation and just to see, so graphically, how the pandemic evolved, what was the impact of the vaccines, which were the age groups involved, which were the countries which had the maximum problem. So this is the topic, COVID-19 future strategies. As I said, this is the scope of our presentation as I gave an overview. Evolution of the pandemic, impact on population, as per the models and as per the real data we have compiled, which I said any one of you can compile, or you can make teams and compile it, and you can replicate the results what we have. We have not done any study, but we have whatever available data in the public domain. Then we will overview of the vaccines, then adverse events, as I said, and then these are the strategies which we have to keep in mind. These are the questions we have to keep in mind when we think of strategy, whether it is masked or stratified by risk, whether it is voluntary or mandate, whether you give vaccines to those who have recovered from it, because the data shows that, research shows that those who recover have got 13 to 27 times more robust. So do we vaccinate them? So research is required for better efficacy. We will see subsequently how efficacious were the vaccines, and research is required for safer vaccines. Improve public health infrastructure and AEFI. So anyway, I have seen the pandemic evolve. I have taken, to describe the pandemic, I have taken a leaf out of Gita, Bhagavad Gita. I am not a very religious person. I am not a very spiritual person. This three gunas from the Gita, Tamas, Rajas and Sattva, were pointed out to me by a professor of hepatology from Switzerland, Johannes Burcher from Bern University. The Gita says that any evolution, anything goes through the phases of Tamas, means darkness, destruction and chaos, anarchy. Then is the Rajas, that is fast thinking, emotions, rage, acting without thinking, that is Rajas. And Sattva is the stage of tranquility, stage of quiet. And now post-pandemic, we are in the phase of Sattva. This is the time we need cool thinking, cool analysis for future. Similarly, this is from the Gita. Similarly, the Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman, in his book Thinking Fast and Slow, also conveyed similar ideas that if you think slow, you may get a better deliberate answers. If you think fast, sometimes you may get mistakes, sometimes you may get it right. So we thought fast. We were in tamas and rajas in the pandemic. Now is the time, the sattva. So we'll see why we went through these phases. So this is the Bhagavad Gita, that sometimes the goodness prevails, that is sattva. Now is the time for goodness and think clearly. Initially, we had the tamas, fear of the unknown, novel virus, then then the passions took over without cool thinking. Then other emotions took over, that is rajas. Rajas include selfishness, power. People were hungry for power, profit, conflicts of interest. These are all rajas. Sattva is the objectivity, without any moh maya, without any conflict of interest. So we have to keep sattva in such disasters. So this is how it was. The pandemic of panic was reminiscent of the medieval era. China became the pace setter in this marathon. A lot of disturbance. So China became the pace setter. And what happened in this pandemic? The thing started from China. We succumbed to the worst of authoritarian governance from China, and subsequently the worst of market forces from the West. It was as we are in a relay race. The relay was started by China, and China handed over the baton to the market forces, and the common person suffered. Lethality of the virus was grossly overestimated. That led to tamas, because initial major casualties occurred in Italy, and Italy shut down. And they took the figures from the nursing homes, where the average age of people were 80 years. And a paper in Lancet estimated 20% mortality. Anybody will go into fear that time, tamas. So most of the people acted in good faith, thinking it's a very lethal virus. Such distorted inputs went into mathematical models which predicted doomsday. And then that tamas led to provocation, stage of blind passion. Logic and science were suppressed because the other rajas came, the selfish interest came. Blind race towards the virus, chasing it at all costs, fractured society. Violence against elderly, women and children increased. There are data, there are studies. For elderly, life is about quality, physical contact, social recreation interrupted. People died alone. After death also, there was no dignity. Body was not handed over, mass cremation. So it was either in life or in death, there was rajas, there was tamas. Then there was a commentary in Lancet that blind restrictive measures tend to increase deaths in poor to save lives of the rich. We saw migrants marching hundreds of kilometers, some collapsing, some dying, many losing their jobs. So whereas the laptop class, they did not suffer. They became richer. They were conveniently at home, never had to commute. So there was social distancing. Though they say it's a bad term, you should use the word physical distancing, but the social divide increased because of the rajas measures which were taken in passion. Anyway, just to take a short break, I don't think many of you will recognize him, because who is he? He is a cricketer from a past era. He was a cricket captain before Mansur Ali Khan Patodi. He was Nari contractor. As I said, this tamas can come any field. It may be in a pandemic, it can be in a game. Cricket was a vicious game. Those days, the batsmen never used to wear helmet. They used to face fast bowlers. West Indies fast bowler Hall and Griffith were very vicious those times, very fast. An Indian team came to West Indies. The name of Hall and Griffith used to put tamas in batsmen. They were just like an unknown virus. And when he went to bat, he just took his eyes off the ball. Griffith was bowling short pitch ball, and he took his eyes off the ball, and he suffered a severe head injury. Luckily, he survived, but his cricket career came to an end. So we have to keep our eyes on the ball, whether it is in cricket or whether it is a public health disaster like a pandemic. What do we mean by keeping our eyes on the ball? We have to see how much lethal the virus is, who are affected, which are the groups not affected, which are the groups vulnerable. So 3 months into, this is the ball for us. This should have been the ball for us. This 3 months into the pandemic, John Ionitz and Jay Bhattacharya from Stanford University carried out sero surveys in Santa Clara, California, and they found for every case detected, there were 20-30 cases which were asymptomatic. The infection has already spread widely into the community, which increased the denominator. And up to the age of 69 years, if you see, the survival was 99.5, almost 99.5, 69 years. Mortality was 0.3% in the study, and subsequently in India, we carried out sero survey, end of the first wave, or mortality came to 0.17 up to 69 years, because we are a younger country and we are a leaner country. As on today, after the Omicron, the infection fatality rate up to 69 years is 0.3% to 0.05%. So these figures are keeping the eye on the ball. Whether we need to panic, we shut down business, and this is the Wuhan virus. This figures which I am projecting, this is from the initial virus. 99 young people, 99.9% survival, and only people with comorbidities were at risk, or obese people, as we will see. So these should have been we should have, accordingly, we could have made a strategy. But anyway, for future strategies, then another thing we noticed, like I said, obese people and aged people are vulnerable. About the age, we knew that they are vulnerable. Aged, and the second hunch we got was obesity is a risk factor. So all students or residents and faculty, they started, I told them to tabulate the graphs country-wise, the mortality per million country-wise from COVID, and also correlate it with the BMI, because that is available in the public domain. WHO site gives the BMI country-wise. So we tabulated the BMI, age, median age is also given countrywide in the WHO site, and the cases of COVID we were getting everyday deaths per million. So we tabulated about 180 countries, and what we find, if you see the right side of the cube, right anterior side of the cube, it coincides with a higher BMI and a higher age. So there was, from 180 countries, the deaths were clustered around high BMI and high age. Age, we cannot go back, but obesity, we can control. So then we plot, I will just show you, we cannot show all 180 countries, but I have taken some continents. We found a difference in the overweight between the 3 continents. As you may know, the Western hemisphere were more obese, 60% almost were overweight, whereas the Asian and African, they were 1/3 or 2.5 times less overweight. So this is the, I will just show, this will be in your archives, I think. I don't know how much you can see, but the topmost is the developed countries like USA, UK, Brazil we have put because Brazil is a good example, and Germany and Sweden. These are the developed countries. If you see, the first column is the initial deaths per million. The second column is the after 2 years. That is, first is May 2020, and after 2 years, these are the cumulative deaths. So the topmost is the 4, they are the highest deaths. And if you see, the third column is the age. Of course, age is higher, so the deaths can be explained. But if you see the second last column, last but one from right, that is the BMI, which are the highest in the Western countries and less in the Asian and African countries. In African countries, South Africa has got the highest BMI equal to the A, and among the South African, they had the largest. This is just an overview. We will just focus further. Then the last column is the vaccination coverage. If you see, the Western countries had the highest vaccination coverage, but they had the highest deaths. The African countries had the lowest vaccination coverage, they had the least death. So that shows the vaccination did not make much of an impact. It is the basic age and the obesity. So age we cannot control, but obesity we can. So these are the deaths, 4 figures after 2 years into the pandemic. And this is the, Japan is an outlier, which has got the highest age, but its BMI is, the death is in 3 digits, whereas 4-digit in the other Western countries. Why? Because its overweight is 27 compared to almost 60% or above 60% in Western countries. So that shows the overweight was a bigger predictor for death than the age also. Japan. Another outlier is Brazil. Brazil is a younger age. So this is the overweight. This is the overweight. You see the Japan is 27% overweight and others are 60%. And the Brazil is a younger population, but it had a year. Now, if I was talking of South Africa, South Africa had a higher obesity, but its age is less, 28 median age. That's why it had a 4-digit, but lesser than the Western countries. So, but among, and similarly Egypt. So these were the two overweight countries which had a higher compared to other other African countries. So these are some of the which we saw the pattern. As I said, we plotted for 180 countries, we have just highlighted. And similarly, then we found papers, they confirmed the study that obesity and COVID-19. So obese people were 2 to 3 times at a higher risk of dying from COVID and serious hospitalization compared to the non-obese. Now, as I said, we just see what was the impact of vaccination. According to models, vaccine saved 20 million lives. Then, as I said, we plotted the real world data. We plotted 1 year before the vaccination, mass vaccination rollout, 1 year after the vaccination rollout. Country after country, we saw some very paradoxical. And this, I will tell all of you to plot yourself. The data is still there. And before with that, there was also a paper published in the European Journal of Epidemiology, where they found from 68 countries and 2947 American counties, they did not find any correlation between the level of vaccination coverage and deaths from COVID. So a paper had also come, so which gave us more confidence that probably what we are seeing is something unusual is happening. If you see, we start with Japan. This is the Japan. If you see Japan, the semicircle, red semicircle is the vaccine rollout in April 2021. This is the number of cases on the left side, and the right side is after vaccination rollout. If you see on the left side, there were hardly any cases. In fact, Japan did not even have a lockdown. So there were hardly any cases in Japan, but after the vaccine rollout, the cases also increased. What may be the reason, which requires more research for future strategy? It may be mutation. Mutants came, it may be vaccination, it may be loss of efficacy over a few months. Then the other thing was that it reduces deaths from COVID. Unfortunately, this was again a very humbling experience to see that if you see the deaths on the left side, there was one peak after vaccine rollout, there are multiple peaks and the number of deaths increased after some time. So this is again from Japan and many countries. I have just shown some countries. This is the cases in Israel. Israel was complimented. Israel was applauded for having the fastest vaccination rollout. After vaccination, you see the number of cases. It has second booster, third booster, and the cases still kept increasing. Similarly, the deaths in Israel. So if you see, even a class 7 child will know that after the vaccine, before the vaccine, it is not working, at least at the population level. It may be individual level, you may consider individual level, it may help, because many things work at the individual level by proper to the patient, customizing our intervention patient, but at the population level, particularly amount of cost, amount of logistics, and if it doesn't work. This is Australia. Australia is a very good example because Australia was very strict. Australia was very strict and it could control its COVID by restrictive measures, by lockdown, not letting anyone enter there. Australia without vaccine. Even that tennis player, Jovic, what was his name? Nojavic, that Australian, though he had recovered, he was not allowed to enter. After the vaccine, they had all the cases after the vaccine. If you see, this is in the public domain, anybody can check. Similarly, deaths, it's a matter of concern. This is deaths in Australia after the vaccine, right side. You see, they say most of the things are due to long COVID, but they never had any COVID. So whatever is happening, one has to raise a red signal, at least an orange signal key. Why they are having so many deaths? This is Singapore. Again, Singapore was a one country which controlled very well, but you see after the vaccination. This is Singapore, deaths, all the deaths after vaccine. This is Malaysia. I saw one of my teachers Kevin Fernandez, Air Commodore Kevin Fernandez was in the audience. So he is attending this, and he is in Malaysia at present. So this is the situation in Malaysia. After the vaccination, cases peaked. These are the deaths in Malaysia, most of the deaths after vaccination. Rollout. This is South Korea. Same deaths. This is Taiwan. Just see. Taiwan was also praised, like Kerala, they control it very well. All the deaths after vaccination, few months. Cases, these are the deaths. Again, all the deaths after vaccination. This is Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was doing again very well, but after vaccination, they had more cases. They had all the deaths after vaccination. So this is Nigeria. I have taken African countries but did not have much of vaccination. This is just 30% coverage. So it has got some peak which usually settles in developing countries. What happens that even without vaccine, with vaccine, you see in a pandemic, rolling out vaccine doesn't work because to take the vaccine effect, it takes 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then second dose. Whereas the respiratory viruses incubation period is 3 to 5 days. So by the time the vaccine is rolled out, the infection, particularly in crowded countries like India, Africa, Asia, it spreads very fast. So vaccine, by the time you give vaccine, the person has already developed natural immunity. Whereas in the Western countries, which we saw those, they are vulnerable, they are naive. This is daily deaths in Nigeria. So what are the lessons from the data? Accordingly, we plan future strategy. Overweight appears to be a big risk factor than age suggested by outlier like Brazil and Japan. Despite different strategies and vaccination, the mortality over 2 years among different countries remained the same. Western countries were 10 to 20 times higher mortality from COVID per million compared to the Asian, 10 times more compared to the Asian, 20 times, 15, 20 times more compared to the African countries, whereas African had the least vaccination. Then future strategy, we have to think of this. We have to review mass vaccination because in this pandemic, it did not work. The data is not showing. And now let us see what is the, there are many vaccines which have come, but these are the 3 basic strategies. mRNA vaccine is a new technology, got the Nobel Prize also, must be good. Brutus was an honorable man. So it instructs what the mRNA vaccine does. It instructs the host cells to produce the S protein. And Pfizer and Moderna are based on that. It is just programming the host cells to produce the S proteins. So the spike protein. So most of the mutations take on the S protein because there is a vaccine pressure. So newer technology, they are thinking to use other protein also because the pressure on one particular is causing mutation. So mRNA vaccines in COVID, data at the population level is not very encouraging, but mRNA technology has got a lot of applications. It may have a lot of potential for treatment of cancers and other things. So it's a good technology, but we have to see where it works, where it doesn't work. Vector vaccine is another new technology. It is a material from COVID-19 virus is transmitted through a viral vector, adenovirus vector, which gives again instructions to the host cell to produce the S protein. So more or less similar to the mRNA vaccine. Again, S protein is produced, and or Covishield and AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca is Oxford, and it is marketed as Covishield India, which was the major vaccine used in India. And Johnson & Johnson also on the same year. Then the traditional vaccine, inactivated viral particle, Covaxin, Bharat Biotech. So what are the limitations of these vaccines, injectable vaccines, that they produce the IgG? For some strange reasons, the IgM is not produced in COVID-19. I don't know why. Probably the cross immunity with other coronaviruses. So the antibodies are produced in the blood, whereas the infection comes from the lungs and the respiratory tracts. It is just like having a gun in the bedroom and the gangster comes and loots you in the drawing room. By the time you bring the gun from the bedroom, the gangster has already killed you. So it is same thing. So this vaccine, future vaccine strategies may have to consider whether the local IgA, Ig immunity can be stimulated, nasal vaccines or what, I don't know. I am not a basic scientist. So these are also may be for future. Yeah. Then concerns about serious adverse events. As I said, the recent paper, over 90 million people were followed up. So mRNA vaccines, pericarditis, myocarditis, Guillain-Barré syndrome, and this 90 million people, India data was not included. but India is a large country actually. It could have produced a lot of data if we have a good vaccine adverse event reporting system. We had a co-vaccine platform. We could have followed up a cohort. We should consider that if we are planning future strategies. And 1.5 times increase in the baseline level of myocarditis and other neurological clotting disorders, stroke. This is viral vector vaccine on clotting disorders, stroke and myocarditis, pericarditis, and particularly in younger people. This stroke and other things are in the younger women and myocarditis in the younger male. So this AstraZeneca, this Covishield was discontinued in many European countries, particularly below 50 years, they paused it. Australian data also was there. It has slightly more side effects than the mRNA vaccine. So we require future strategy. Before we do future planning, we have to evaluate whatever vaccines used, what are the safety margins. Then the matter of concern is excess deaths since past 2-3 years, and particularly among young adults below 40 years in many highly vaccinated countries. Australian data, as I said, is very important because they did not have much of COVID, but they had a much larger vaccination. And in Australian data also, there has been a 60% rise in cardiac events between 20 years to 50 years of age, the younger male population. So this requires thorough investigation, including autopsy studies. Similar from UK. UK recently, last week only, it changed its death reporting. So earlier it was showing 20,000 excess deaths, but by some modeling, again mathematical models come, I don't know, when we have data, and it says that there is no excess deaths. So these are what should be the future strategies: more research on safety and efficacy, need for robust adverse events monitoring system, mass vaccination or risk-based approach. Shall we vaccinate the young? These are the questions I want to ask the young people. Shall we vaccinate the young and children without comorbidities? America is doing that. It is vaccinating children up to 6 months of age. Shall we follow America? Shall we vaccinate those who have recovered from natural infection? Everybody is silent on that. All the big. Then shall we impose vaccine mandates or offer it on a voluntary basis? Supreme Court in India has turned down vaccine mandates. Shall we blindly follow the West, ignoring the local epidemiology in our country? Shall we remove ice from the ball? Vaccine is like a helmet. Nadi contractor did not have a helmet. So, okay, vaccine is there, you take on the helmet, but wearing a helmet doesn't mean that you start batting with not with your bat, but with your head. You still have to have the batting skill. So you have to have a general health good. Just vaccine cannot save you from everything. There are so many viruses in future which will come. Will we have 100 of vaccines? Is it logistically possible? So this is the conclusion. Who is he again? Last question. This is mathematician, philosopher who got the Nobel Prize in literature, Bertrand Russell. We started with the Gita, philosophy of the Gita. We are ending with the philosophy of a modern philosopher. He said man is struggling always with 3 different forces. First is man struggles against nature, conquering disasters, conquering infectious diseases, conquering pandemics, interface with veterinary zoonosis. That is the man is in struggle with nature. Once he conquers that, man turns against his neighbor, whether it is war or fighting with your neighbor, Ukraine war. There was Russia, USA Cold War. Once the USSR was fragmented, there was only unipolar world. And then we can add violence, sanction of gain of function research is also man against man. Man is planning this Wuhan virus also. Now it is highly probable now that it has come from a lab. So this gain of function research is also violence, biological warfare. And even after, third thing is, as men become conquering nature, conquering the neighbor, man has nothing to do, man turns against self. Obesity and lifestyle disease, population, that's why population, we saw from the charts that the Asian and African countries are still to catch up with the West in obesity, overweight. But we are not leaving any efforts, particularly on middle class. Middle class is fast becoming very obese. You see children, you see young adults, they are fast reaching. And if you see the second wave, it affected the middle class first, because the first wave affected the slum people and the urban poor. So Dharavi is a good example. Second wave, they were not affected, but the middle class was affected, who are likely to be the they are following the laptop class and the Zomato class. So they are fast approaching the obesity of the, so that is man against self. So have we arrived? So this is lesson from modern philosopher. And Sun Tzu, again, who was Sun Tzu? Was again a Chinese warrior and a philosopher. Chinese virus, Chinese philosophy. So he says the art of war teaches us not on the likelihood of the enemy not coming, but on a readiness to receive him, not on the chance of his not attacking, but rather on the fact that we have made a position unassailable. You see, pandemic X, now we are worrying about the next pandemic. Pandemic X, we are preparing vaccine. अरे भाई क्या करोगे वैक्सीन? कौन से एनीमिया के अगेंस्ट वैक्सीन लगाओगे? कौन सा आर्टिलरी हवा में मारोगे? We don't know the virus, but we know that obesity killed in the past pandemic. We know that comorbidity killed in the past pandemic. We know that poor lifestyle killed in the past pandemic. So this is making our host factors strong. Any virus, we can deal with it. And who are the vulnerable, who are the elderly community, they can be protected. They may be vaccinated. But this is the actual prepare for art of war. And lastly, we end with a Hindi movie. Take home message, control of obesity, biggest challenge in the West. Obesity creeping up in developing economies like Brazil, lesson for other developing economies like India, and need for primordial prevention in these countries. Lack of public health infrastructure, challenge in poor countries. We have a young population. We can take on viruses as long we do not become overweight. But our distribution of health services, like second wave, there was a medical stampede because there were rural areas, there were no medical facilities. Everybody crowded the urban. So many people died in the medical stampede by neglect of other comorbidities, lack of oxygen, other things. So if we have a good health structure, that is preparing for pandemic X, not going piecemeal. There will be hundreds of viruses. Viruses are with us since billions of years, and it will be more than billions of years in future. We can't go for piecemeal solutions. We have to go for health services, and we have to go for host. So as I said, this is the last take-home message from a Hindi movie, Agnipath, in which the villain, the bad man, tells the hero who is chasing him, अपना उसूल कहता है जब दुश्मन की उम्र बढ़ जाती तो उससे दोस्ती कर लो, अपनी उम्र भी बढ़ जाती है. As I said, the viruses are long-lived and they will live longer. So we should not keep chasing, stop chasing the virus or viruses, else we will fall off the cliff like an elephant chasing the COVID cat. So future strategies for COVID vaccination, take home message for you to answer. Whether we should have mass scale as we had, or we should study the epidemiology, see which grades go, and accordingly focus. Because what happened in this pandemic? This was a marathon, and the world tried to run a marathon at the speed of a sprint. अभी sprint भागा रुक गया, अभी हाँफ रहे हैं, वो marathon चला गया हाथ से. So this is how we should plan. These are the references, and as I said, I want all of you to do their own study, which data is there, and these are some of the references. I suppose it will there. I would like to be educated. Whatever I have projected, these are the data. I am asking this question since 2 years. I have published also this data. Nobody is answering me. Am I missing something? That after why the population level? So these are my contact. Anybody can throw some light on the data. I would like to be educated. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you very much for your excellent presentation. As usual, I always enjoy your, let's say, echo sound. So I always enjoy your presentation, your lecture. So thank you very much.
Can I come in?
No, he spoke, no?
Hello?
You're on mute,
Not
sir.
audible, sir.
Sir, why are we not speaking about? Sir, we need to discuss about depopulation and geo.
Sir, ये आवाज नहीं आ रहा सर.
Sir, let us be truthful about genocide. Let us be truthful about depopulation by Bill Gates. Until unless we speak the truth, we will not be having any.
देखिए डॉक्टर साहब, अभी क्या है कि what is known we go from known. Those things are bigger issues, but we as scientists should see what is the science, and then we can challenge any Gates. Forget about Bill Gates, we can challenge any Gates ki this is the science, why you want that? So if we are very good on our sound scientific principles, which I have pointed out, the data is showing this, that is the way forward. I mean, if we are keeping quiet on the data, it is a matter of who speaks loud or who has got the bigger purse. So if we have the data, let the people know the data. The data is in the public domain. Let it be known to all, and that is the way.
The media has been restrictive about truth. The only propaganda is blared everywhere.
So
Even the Indian government, which said it is compulsory, submitted an affidavit in different high courts saying that it was a voluntary injection, and the Indian government is not responsible for the complications. Why was that dichotomy by the government?
So that is a different issue. We are talking of the scientific base. This can
the AIFI reporting website is named beneficiary. That's the irony of it. And no person has been compensated for the AIFIs.
Anyway, this data is there. This evidence can be taken to the court, so that as scientists we can do that only. So it is for the people, for the democratic country like ours. It is not only India, it is a global. People were under tamas and people were under rajas, and people followed China. And China, if you follow China, you will always be under tamas. China is always under tamas because it has a good big iron curtain. Everything is dark behind that armor curtain. So it is it's a global phenomena, and I am happy that you have brought it up, and it is for civic society to take this up. We scientists are feeding you the evidence.
So there is scientific
question in the chat. Why was by Dr. Maya Valecha?
Yeah.
Why there was surveys ignored? Our population was already immune.
Yeah, that happened. That's why one of the question I have said is, shall we roll out mass vaccination to people who have already recovered? So we require these surveys more. So as I said, these are the things you should tell your elected representative in parliament. These are parliament questions should come up in parliament. These are the questions. The evidence is very much there that people who have recovered from natural infection, and particularly 60, 70, 80% of our people before the mass vaccine rollout already had developed antibodies. Probably that saved us from. So this is the science. Future may we should not make the same mistake again. What is happened must have happened at a speed of lightning through a lot of pressures, and
I request all to pose the questions in the chat.
Can I raise a question, please?
Yeah.
My concern is after Covishield vaccines, AEFI monitoring has not fully complied with the full investigation of the causality establishment. See, very few out of vaccine-associated deaths, alleged vaccine-associated deaths, had a complete autopsy with histopathological report, whether it is a diffuse intravascular coagulation and a diffuse multiple thrombi, which is a feature of COVID-associated, in fact, different from routine, normally happening heart attacks and stroke. There will be a large thrombus sitting on a major vessel. Unless, and vis-a-vis that, it has got a histopathological manifestation of diffuse multiple thrombi. That has not been established, and AFI cannot say there is no causality association. So we should be open, science should prevail, not propaganda. That's my concern.
Agreed. As far as I said, we require more research on we should have a AFI system. We require autopsy, more autopsy, and there is a global pressure for more autopsy. So many strange things are coming out, clots and other things which require research. And you are 100% right. It is not only in our country, even in the most developed countries, 90% of the vaccine-associated deaths are not reported. So there is a problem there. That's why we should go slow. We should go in vaccine rollout, seeing who are at risk. Young people are not at risk. 1 in million person is at risk, and the vaccine, as far as AstraZeneca is concerned, is at serious side effect is 1 in 800. And what happens 1 in 800 is still a clinician perspective is different, because clinician does not follow 800 vaccinated person. So even if he follows 800, 1%, he will label as coincidental. But if you see the data at the population level, you see a pattern. So that is why public health should be at the forefront in pandemic. What has happened in the past pandemic, it is the clinicians with the clinical experience saying vaccine is safe and effective, safe, because 800 mein agar ek hoga, 1 in 800 is one too many, because the signal is 1 in 10,000 hoga, so vaccine has to be stopped. In this pandemic, the side effect was 1 in 800, serious side effect, but a clinician doesn't see 800 cases. He will see 799, he says it's safe, I have taken my family members. But the pattern has to be followed. That's why we had a very good system of reporting of daily cases and daily deaths. Similarly, we have given a Covaxin on a platform. Digital platform should have followed forward. They should have easily done a study, those who are vaccinated, and see the deaths. Instead, they do a different type of study, which is a case control study, which cannot catch, because everybody is vaccinated. When the exposure is universal, it is very difficult to find the difference. So that is what happened. So we agree with you, sir. This is what we have also suggested in this presentation.
Thank you. I'm very thrilled that you are saying the truth.
I can afford to. I can afford to, sir.
Dr. Banu Prakash, you have raised your hand.
Sir, even the trial complications were concealed, and the mass vaccination was imposed, and that was a very blatant atrocity, which I call. And now even the AFIs are not being acknowledged, and no compensation is being given. This we need to change. Unless we change this, we will be subjected to the new world, the slave world order. I don't call it the new world order. Using the World Health Organization, the Health Organization has become a hell organization, which is being abused, and the global depopulation agenda is planned. Their plan is to depopulate by 2050. Let us not fall to their agenda and propaganda, and let us unite together and win this war against the genocide and create a better world, sir. That is what I want to say.
Thank you. Thank you. These are concerns which the elected representatives will raise in parliament. And as science, I can say, yes, scientific principles have been violated. As a bioethicist, I can say ethical principles have been violated. And what they are planning is for the other civil activists and social, and they can take the evidence we provide. You are free to use this evidence. These are in the public domain, and this can bring about a change, or at least it can halt whatever way the things are going.
So there are no more questions. No?
I got one more question for the scientific world to debate. The ICMR study of 47 tertiary care centers looked at a study of association, not causality, and association of factors. And in that, again, it is so simplified conclusion that obesity and alcoholism and previous history of exposure to COVID, like that, associations are more, and vaccine has no association. That has to be questioned. That study is methodologically to be questioned, and the findings are skewed, and it is very unscientific, and ICMR should be ashamed to put up a study like this.
If you are, I have written to ICMR, I have written to the journal, in fact. I have, what you have pointed out, I told them that the method, I wrote a letter to them, correspondence, the study is methodologically unsound, and I would say that Indian Journal of Medical Research was sporting enough to publish my rejoinder. They published it, and also Dr. Bhaskar Raman, a data scientist from IIT Mumbai, also had many issues with the study. They published his rejoinder also, and that is very sporting of him, Indian Journal of Medical Research, because I have written 2 letters to the Lancet. Firstly, on their models, I gave them the actual data, calculated they said that on the models, India had concealed the deaths from. Yeah. I said it cannot be. If it is 0.05 up to 69 years of age, 97% of our populations are below 69 years of age. If everybody is affected, this would be the death. It would be just 5 lakh. It cannot be 15 to 20 lakhs. They have written an editorial. I rebutted that editorial. They kept it for 6 months. They did not publish my letter. That way, ICMR, India Journal of Medical Research, they allowed me to publish my letter, and they published everything. They gave the author's reply also. You can read it. It is on their website, November,
I look
December
at it.
issue. And they said, in fact, there are a lot of data discrepancy also. They took 500 people, then they analyzed the data for only 250 people. Then I asked why the 250 went away. They said the date of vaccination was not there. We excluded them from the study, which is not a very good answer, because Covaxin mein Prime Minister ka bhi photo hai, date bhi hai. So these are the, unfortunately, as you said, it's embarrassing. In fact, that study has got more authors than substance. 100 authors are there. And anyway, we are more open, sir. हमारे यहाँ ये सब बातचीत हो रहा है. हमारे यहाँ AIIMS-NAMS ने हमको ये प्लेटफॉर्म दिया है. In America, doctors are delicensed if they talk like that. They are labeled as spreading misinformation. So we are still a very vibrant society. So it's rightly now is the time to make our politicians aware, member of parliaments aware that what is happening.
We need a better vaccine platform, whether it is not spike protein. We need less virulent, maybe even if it is impact is less, efficacy is less, more stable and less side effect. So the platform
we should see the disease. Disease is causing so less mortality. Any of our normal disease is having more mortality. I am 69 years of age. If I get COVID, my mortality is 0.5. If I get typhoid, even if I take drug, my mortality is 3%. So why we are not worried of more serious disease? We have got dengue. We have got. That's why I said, do we follow the West?
So, thank you, Dr. Anthony. इको इतना क्यों हो रहा है? तो कोई बात तो आगे बढ़ो. Okay. So thank you. What I will do, I will try to summarize the Dr. Amitabh Banerjee's presentation, and also sir, am I audible, Dr. Banerjee?
Yes, sir.
Now, so now audible only through this. So, and he has also posed 2 questions. So I shall try to answer these 2 questions also. So in his first part of presentation, he the is that the this burden of COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 infection was overestimated in terms of mortality, morbidity, everything. And second part was that vaccination was not required in many situations. The original clinical trial was done in one virus, and that time vaccine effectiveness, efficacy was up in a few cases like messenger RNA vaccine, that was around 95%, both Moderna and your another, sorry, there were 2 messenger RNA vaccine. No, Covishield is a vector vaccine. So overall efficacy was around 95%. Then Covishield AstraZeneca vaccine trial done in 3 countries, Europe, Brazil, South Africa, and UK. And they have already published the result of this clinical trial, efficacy trial of UK and Brazil in Lancet, and the vaccine efficacy was 62.1%. Currently, we are seeing that effectiveness is 90%, 95%, even in the peer-reviewed journal. The basic question here is, either we don't know the efficacy and effectiveness. We used to teach, we have been taught by our seniors, and we are teaching this, what is the vaccine efficacy? Vaccine efficacy we calculate in a very controlled situation. Whereas effectiveness is when actual rollout happens. so it should always be lower than the vaccine effectiveness should be lower than the vaccine efficacy. Just like we also give this example that just like in a car in factory setting, in ideal situation, if they are claiming mileage 26 kilometer per liter, so that is the maximum. So that is the efficacy. Effectiveness is at actual at the road condition. So that will be always lower. So there are a lot of flaws even in the peer-reviewed journal publication. Sir, your question related to shall we vaccinate the young? This is the strength of modern medicine is it's evidence-based medicine. So our reply should be based on the current evidence. Either we generated through the clinical trials for the various vaccine or through the real world data or various other studies. To the best of my knowledge, our understanding of SARS coronavirus 2 and COVID-19 disease, these all these vaccines are all these vaccines were very effective in when the population was susceptible. Susceptible means never had COVID or unvaccinated population. So susceptible population, and we did. I was also part of the clinical trial. We did in the all these clinical trial in a susceptible population and against the one virus, right? You rightly said that majority of these vaccines are producing antibodies against S protein. Only one component. There are 4 proteins, only one component of vaccine, and that is a more S protein is, I can say, more immunogenic. So they are producing, and majority of mutations are happening in S protein only. Almost and completely changed. Now it's a completely changed virus in terms of if you see only S protein, not N, M, or E protein. So what are the evidence we have? We have evidence that during clinical trials, vaccines were effective from 60% to almost 95%, reducing severity and deaths, not in terms of infection. Although many countries in this world, they implemented vaccination with this hope that this will prevent the infection also. So first, when the population was susceptible, repeatedly saying susceptible population. So almost they are claiming 80 to 90% reduction in the deaths after vaccination in a susceptible population. That means per million, if you are vaccinating a susceptible population, that time the case fatality rate was in susceptible population around 1.5%. Even today, if you see the total number, almost 700 million cases and 7 million deaths. So it's a 1% current for the case fatality, not the infection fatality rate. The case fatality rate was 1.5% that time. So per million, suppose if population is susceptible, almost per million cases, 15,000 were dying. Based on this data, we can save 30,000 to 14,000 population through vaccination. But vaccinations, all these vaccines are causing some problem. You rightly mentioned some are causing pericarditis, some are myocarditis, pericarditis, or GB syndrome, etc. Blood clotting. So, but these are the rare conditions. Almost, if you see the literature, there are thousands of publications, 50 to 70 per million. So when the population was susceptible, that time we can sacrifice, suppose even if in serious nation, all these serious adverse event following immunization, 50 to 70 per million, we can sacrifice 50 to 70 if you are saving life of 13,000 or 40,000 per million population. See, in public health, we always do risk and benefit analysis. So if you see when the population was susceptible, was low compared to benefit of the vaccination. But we have zero survey report, even in the children, almost 100% got exposure. So after exposure, whatever evidence we have based on the current evidence, we can say you are protected from severity of death. Almost deaths are zero after reinfection. Very few reported deaths, and very few reported severity. So that means 1 at maximum 2 per million population. Same is true for the less than 18 years of children. Here, per million, in case of children, per million 50,000 are not dying. A lot of population, only 2 are dying. So if you do the risk and benefit analysis, even in a susceptible population of children, it's not in favor of vaccinating these children. Less than 18 year, 2 deaths through vaccination, although it's rare, but 50 to 70, that means 20 to 30 times higher mortality due to vaccination. Whereas in adult susceptible population, the overall mortality was around 1.5%. That means per million, 15,000 were dying. So the saving was here almost 13,000 to 14,000 life per million. That is a calculation based on the evidence generated by trials and other studies, right? So your question to the second answer to the second question. So we don't have any evidence to shall we vaccinate children. The first question, young. Definitely, we don't have any answer. We don't have any evidence that will provide benefit. That may provide more harm, right? And there are few countries like India, and we are very thankful to government of India. They didn't inoculate children less than 12 years of age. There are many countries in this world, they are inoculating even the 4th dose with the 4th dose. 6 months and above, their policy inoculate, provide COVID vaccine 6 months and above. So 3 doses they have already given. So to the best of my understanding, no, that can't be done. The second question was, shall we vaccinate those who had COVID? In those who had exposure, see, those who were unfortunate, they died. But evidence, the first, if you recall, Dr. Banerjee, the first publication came in December 2020, published in Lancet, New England Journal of Medicine, very high impact journal. Oxford University, they have done a study in healthcare provider. Although they have not calculated the efficacy of the natural infection in terms of infection and in terms of severity and death, but if you see the data, they followed for the 7-month period. So even after 7 months, the mortality was 0 in those who had exposure. Even after 7 months, 100% protected against who had infection. So that means if you calculate the way we calculate the efficacy of the vaccine, the same way if you calculate here the efficacy of natural infection against infection was even 95%, even at the 7 months. All these vaccines are not producing, not providing any protection against infection. They are providing protection against, based on the evidence, against severity and death in a susceptible population. So these deaths are almost 0. Those who recover from the COVID after reinfection, almost severity is almost 0. So here, in this case also, if you are giving vaccine, the chances of causing harm is more than the good. This is my comments. So thank you very much. Thank you. If anybody have any question, we may allow a few more questions. So we have 10 minutes time, so we can allow a few more questions. Thank you very much.
So there are a few questions in the chat. So there are a few questions in the chat by Dr. Sumita. Can we expect the medical fraternity on educating about the various adverse effects? In India, even if we have AEFI, most Indians aren't even aware that shingles, Bell's palsy, GBS, ILD, pancreatitis, lung cholera, and several other adverse effects.
Dr. Banerjee.
Yeah, this is as on today, vaccination is not indicated because we are not having any serious mutants. Even the J1N1 fizzled out. So that shows as Dr. Sanjay Rai said, most of our people have recovered natural infection. So that nobody needs a vaccine today, at least against COVID vaccine. But as you say about educating more than the people, I think the medical community also needs education and some training to identify the adverse effects. I am very concerned we don't have a proper system, particularly we are given vaccine in remote areas. Remote areas, we don't have proper trained healthcare workers who can identify, and most of the time, as I said, 800 में अगर एक केस होगा तो वो coincidental में निकल जाएगा. So there is a major issue of adverse events following immunization system. We should have almost a digital platform where the common person can immediately report, and a quick reaction team should be there to identify the causality. Causality association is very difficult nowadays given our system. So there is definitely, the policy makers have to be educated, I would say. They have to wake up to this problem. I mean, as I said, you are running a super fast train without proper tracks. It is exactly like that. Do you allow that? Because in a train accident, it comes in the mainstream newspaper, because many people die simultaneously. Here also many people may be dying, such a large country, but they are dying scattered, and they are not dying at some time, but total deaths may be more. So we require proper tracks if we are so ambitious to run for vaccine for every virus which is coming. As I said, when the pandemic comes, there is no point in vaccinating, because you cannot, it is like chasing a deer in the forest. By the time you vaccine catches up, everybody has got natural infection or the virus has mutated. So the vaccine will be always one step behind. So I have my concerns whether whatever risk benefit is calculated, we have to see the context of a population, highly dense population, natural infection spread fast. And if there is no risk, from the vaccine, from the disease, if there is minimum risk for the disease and vaccine risk is unknown, we can leave it to the patient to take an informed decision. The Supreme Court has already said that vaccine is not mandatory. So it should be an informed, and for that we should have very good safety data and very good data on the disease as well as data on the vaccine. So there are a lot of things, we have to do a lot of homework. Then only we can answer this question.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to come in on this thing because I meet a lot of people who talk about, getting shingles or Bell's palsy and all those things. So people are mostly right now aware of the heart attacks and the strokes that they're getting. So the clots they are aware of. But the other things that are happening, I feel a complete illiteracy on that adverse effect. And as you rightly mentioned, that our medical fraternity also has to work on this thing. And I really wish that medical fraternity has a list of the adverse events that may follow, because as we know that the adverse effects could be very different in different population. So that list also should be made out and should be given so that people can register also in AFI. People should also be able to know that, okay, this I have adverse effect from the vaccine. It is not normal for me to get shingles like this. So at least whether it is not is for the medical fraternity later to investigate, but at least they are aware of it. Thank you, sir. You answered my question.
I would add one more thing. It should be an independent body investigating the AEFI, because here whoever is implementing that same organization is evaluating it. So there is always some sort of bias comes. So there should be an independent body that can also be something like a auditor general. We should have a medical auditor general also, which can audit free from any influence, commercial interest, political or career interest.
I would certainly support that, because the AEFI certification, the state level committee and national level committee cannot add any quality. Basically, it is the first physician doing the complete case workup, and the team, district level AEFI committee can do a nice workup. And if it is, the causality is not associated by a good postmortem and histopathological examination of microscopic changes in the tissue, whether it is lung, heart, or brain, and that is the final verdict, that person, and that has to be a pathology professor or a forensic medicine expert giving a comment, and that should be final, because no state level person or national level person can come back on it. If there is a slide retain, you can. Otherwise, it adds no quality. It is just adding a super seal. And that AIFI monitoring committee at state level and national level has become a mockery. After 65 deaths causes established, they have not uploaded any result in the web page. It is initial 65 deaths.
So parliament, it should have discussed in parliament by MPs and in both houses.
Thank you, sir. There is one question by Dr. Maya. 3 of first 5 volunteers are at S2 were antibody positive. Why was not the trial stopped? Cases or ones which you test but affected were much more than that. That knowledge was there from May 2020.
I didn't understand the question. Why were not the trials stopped?
Yes, sir. That has been the question. Why was not the trial stopped when 3 of the first 5 volunteers at AIIMS were antibody positive?
What IgG? IG?
I'll tell you. At Serum Institute of India, 3 of the first 5 volunteers at Pune were found antibody positive.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was so obvious that by May 2020, but a lot of people were already having antibodies in their blood. It's not just the case fatality rate that we have to consider. We have to take infection. So trial itself was not required. That's what I would personally say, that by May 2020, if you have so much percentage, you should have stopped the trial. There's no need for any vaccine. That's all.
The trial were a problem in developed countries also. USA also, Pfizer trials, there were whistleblower said so many protocols were violated. So as I said, for evaluation of adverse event following immunization, similarly the trial should be handled by independent body, not under pharma or any other control. So for that, the state should spend a lot of money for this important public health research, not surrendering the trial and everything to the pharmacological companies. Let them manufacture it, but let them be audited or they put to the trial by independent bodies.
Thank you, sir. There is a question from Dr. Pooja. Flawed RT-PCR is being used not only to detect the virus, it is now being used to detect the variants of SARS-CoV-2. Can we stop flawed RT-PCR?
I forget about RT-PCR. According to me, we are carrying streptococcus, staphylococcus. We do not label in the case. So even if it is RT-PCR positive, first time in history we had an asymptomatic case. So many things came up in this pandemic which violated many scientific principles. We are carrying so many viruses, much more pathogenic viruses than the SARS-CoV. Streptococcus, meningococcal also we carry, pneumococcal also we carry. I have investigated outbreaks in the armed forces. In the inter-epidemic period also, we never labeled those carriers as cases. So we require a lot of rethink. We require to take a pause. What is happening is we are having too much of fragmented science. Like a virologist sees one and raises an alarm. And everything is panicky. And the tamas comes. As I said, tamas and rajas comes. We should have a sattva. We should know we carry so many viruses. Why we label a case? So it requires a lot of rethinking. Now is the time to do a proper. Usually after pandemic, there used to be a analysis of the what went right, what went wrong. So we should analyze that before preparing for the pandemic X. What has gone wrong in the known pandemic? Many things have gone wrong. So we require a scientific audit.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Swarn has asked, please speak on vaccine detox too, if not covered already. Sir, can you hear us?
I cannot hear. I don't hear anything.
Sir, there is a question requesting to speak on vaccine detox.
Okay. I have no idea of detox, not my competence.
Thank you, sir. There is another question by Dr. Nissa. Isn't the HPV vaccination also launched now in the same disastrous way as the COVID vaccines, which were directly tried on unsuspecting population?
Same principles, any vaccine, same principles. And today I can say that I have come prepared with COVID vaccine, not HPV vaccine, but HPV vaccine also same principles. Because we have to see the risk and we have to have the long-term data of efficacy. In COVID vaccine, we could not assure efficacy beyond 2 years. And this cervical cancer develops after 20 years or 30 years. So until unless we have that data, difficult.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Pooja has again asked, can we halt vaccine manufacturing units in India and cancel the licenses?
What licenses?
So she has just mentioned license to be cancelled. Maybe she means the license for the manufacturing units.
That is I mean, as I said, here, simple scientists, we can just talk on science. These are administrative or legal issues. So it is a people democracy should raise it through the elected reps and bring the so many lapses to the attention of the people, and then with supported by science. What is happening is loud voices coming. Things are getting polarized. If you polarize, the other person goes on the defensive. So you have to sit together and do a proper audit. Things might have gone wrong. One should be a bit, I think we need some sort of amnesty rather than a treaty. We are talking of pandemic treaty. We require some sort of amnesty. Let us forgive and forget. Don't repeat the mistakes again. I think that is the way forward.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Anjan Kumar Giri has raised his hand. Would you like to ask any question?
Sir, am I audible, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, sir. Sir, thank you very much for your very enlightening talk based on scientific data and logic. I want to just do clarifications, sir. One is like as you have projected the data from different countries, like post-vaccination, the number of cases and number of deaths, rise in number of cases and number of deaths in many countries. But was it related to the same strain for which the vaccine was given, and whether it was due to the same strain or the related strain or the susceptible strain or a different strain? That is my first question. And the second is, as in our country, the vaccination strategy was used, like the very first preference was for the elderly and comorbid persons, then subsequently other ones, next age group, and lastly the younger ones. So was the strategy right? So these are the two questions.
Okay. First question is whether that is a very basic question, whether vaccine was prepared from the original strain, and your concern is that it might have mutated. It is exactly that is what, as I said, that happens in practice. Vaccinating during a pandemic, as I said, is like chasing a deer in the forest. By the time you bring out the vaccine, it has already mutated, or population has developed the herd immunity or the antibodies, which in India it was like that. So that's why I said our science is getting very fragmented, tunnel vision. These things are produced in the lab and they take it to the population, and they don't know what is happening in the population. The mutation must have taken place. Population, you see, in a large population, we may have 100 times more mutation than we have in the UK or the Western countries. And they raise an alarm, variant of concern, and we get panicky here. Whereas we might have had, because of a dense population, number of cycles and transmission, the many mutations which has gone undetected. And I don't want people to change mutations. These are for research purposes. Practically, you cannot change a mutant and produce a vaccine in real time. Now they say they will produce vaccine in 100 days. Okay, 100 days, what is the safety? How you can assure a safety of a vaccine in 100 days? So these are very science fiction-like things. Unfortunately, we are following science fiction in real life. That was your first question. Whatever be the cause, it is not possible vaccine to change during a pandemic. Second was whether the strategy was right. We started with the elderly and comorbid. We should have stopped there only. They started right, they went down the age. That was not required.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. There are further no more questions. If anyone would like to ask. If none, let's move on to the next this thing. It was really a very eye-opening session for me, and I hope it will be the same for all the participants. And I would like to invite Professor AIIMS-NAMS sir to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Preeti. On behalf of the National Academy of Medical Sciences, it is my pleasure to thank the distinguished speaker for this evening. Professor Banerjee, sir, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your viewpoint and generating a lot of discussion. I am sure that the discussion and the answer which you have given will be useful for all of us, especially the epidemiologists and the PG students who are working on this area. I will also like to place on record the support which we have the chairperson for this evening, Professor Sanjay Rai, sir, and he has very nicely chaired and directed the question and answer session. So thank you so much. So once again, I will like to thank all the participants, especially the senior professors from various medical colleges who have asked various questions, raised the issues, and that discussion has been really very interesting for all of us. So thank you so much for your participation, and also to the PG student who have attended this program. For the information of the PG students, the next session on Navigate CME will be focusing on the theme of orthopedics. So from 15th of March onwards, we are going to have session on orthopedics. So along with that, the parallel session AIIMS-Navigate will also go on. So we'll be communicating to you all the details very soon. So please inform your colleagues to attend this session. You can always send us questions in advance so that we can put it to the speakers. So thank you so much for being with us this evening. And special thanks to Dr. Preeti, who has been associated with us from the very beginning. So always you have been supportive, and your support is very, very much valuable to us. So once again, I would like to thank all of you who have been with us this evening. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. I declare today's academic session closed. Thank you all.